Hey, I'm Kallie. I'm the executive director for the Center for Bioethics and Culture, and I have a story for you. I actually just returned from Washington, D.C., where I was joined with hundreds of people celebrating Detransitioners Awareness Day. And that was an amazing event where I got to moderate a panel on Capitol Hill. I got to join D-Sisters, detransitioners, parents, and experts as we celebrated the wins on protecting children from the dangerous ideology that is gender identity or transgender ideology, and then talked about strategies and things we needed to do to move forward to help those who've already been harmed by this lie, this medical scandal, greatest medical scandal of our time, in my opinion. It was a great trip. I left very encouraged, but while I was there, I was contacted by a surrogate mother who had a very important story that she wants to tell, and I'm here to tell it. Because of some conflicts of interest and some of the personal details of her story, she wanted to stay completely anonymous, and she's not going to come on camera to tell her story. Instead, I'm going to tell her story the best that I can with the details that she gave me. And while I was talking to her and taking notes and listening to her story, I just kept thinking, holy cow. If there was a textbook example of a woman that had so many things go wrong in a surrogate pregnancy that could just be like the poster child for why not to do surrogacy, her story would be it. To give a little background before I start going into the details, this mother, the surrogate mother, lived in the state of California using a surrogacy agency here in California. The intended parents who were 100% genetically related to the embryo, meaning that the dad provided the sperm and the mom the intended mother and the intended father provided the sperm and the egg. There was no egg donor, which is often the case. For them, it was 100% genetic embryo. But the intended couple, the intended parents, lived in New York City. We're not sure if they were residents of New York City or just visiting. She does know that they were originally from Asia. And that is important because if you're following what's happening with international surrogacy arrangements, we know that intended parents or an intended parent that comes to the United States for surrogacy arrangements from another country, they are predominantly from Asia. They're predominantly male, older men from Asia. So I include that because it is an important little detail. This surrogate mother lives in the state of California, where we are the Wild West of surrogacy and third-party reproduction. The intended parents are residing in the state of New York and are originally from somewhere in Asia. So she is, another little tidbit, is kind of recruited through the surrogacy, to the surrogacy world, through some relatives who are recruiters for the agency that she actually went with. This was proposed as an idea, as an option for her to make some income for her family. She is a stay-at-home mother to 3 young children and wanting to contribute to her household without picking up an extra job or leaving her children. She's still able to be a mom to her 3 young children. And then also, of course, to help provide a family for a couple who's always been longing to have a child of their own. And so after being recruited from family members, she contacted the agency, of course. She passed all of her required exams and testings and was matched with the intended parents that we've just spoke about that were residing in New York and signed the contract. And all of that went pretty well from her recollection. But about 12 weeks, she started having some bleeding and some pain and was diagnosed with placenta previa. Fast forward a little bit further. At 27 weeks, she went into premature rupture of membranes, meaning that the bag of water protecting the baby actually ruptured early at 27 weeks. Fortunately, she did not go into labor, and it was just what we call sometimes as a labor and delivery nurse, like a pinprick rupture or pinpoint rupture. It was able to heal on its own. So I imagine she spent some time in the hospital. They probably gave her antibiotics, and she was able to continue the pregnancy. Thankfully, we know surrogate pregnancies are more likely to deliver early. They're also more likely to be high risk, as we see in this case, more likely to be diagnosed with things like placenta previa, deliver early. So anyway, 27 weeks, her bag of water ruptured, but she was able to continue the pregnancy. And around 32 weeks, she just had this bad feeling. It was in her quote. She said, I just felt like I needed to deliver this baby. Something bad was happening. She went to her doctor. She was reassured. However, a week later, she was diagnosed with pre-eclampsia, which is high blood pressure. Our study, as well as studies elsewhere, will also demonstrate that preeclampsia you're more likely to have preeclampsia in pregnancies where you are the surrogate mother. So now we have placenta previa diagnosis. We have someone who ruptured membranes early, and now we have someone with severely high blood pressure. Miraculously, I do not know how, but she made it to a scheduled C-section at 38 weeks pregnant. Her 3 previous babies were born via C-section, so they knew ahead of time that this baby would be born via C-section. And really the only thing that she has to say about her contact with the intended parents throughout her pregnancy and throughout this experience was that they kept harassing her to have the baby at a certain day at a certain time. And she didn't really understand that. I don't know if that's why she made it to 38 weeks, if it was just the pressure from the intended parents or what was going on, but she made it to 38 weeks. She had a scheduled C-section. The intended parents were able to be there for her C-section and miraculously made it to term. When she delivered, she went to the postpartum unit to recover, and during her recovery, she just remembers starting bleeding. And her visitor that was there with her support person let them, hey, I need help, notified the nursing team that she thought she was bleeding or something was wrong. She went pale. She actually doesn't remember much beyond a whole group of people running into her room, and that's it. And she woke up in the ICU. She found out that she had to have 7 blood transfusions. That is like a whole person. When you have to have that many blood transfusions, you are very close to death. She had an emergency hysterectomy, so she lost her uterus and her capability to have children ever again if she wanted. She very well could have lost her life. And she, again, let me remind you, she was a stay-at-home mom to 3 young children. In the state of California, we have had surrogate mothers lose their lives, leaving children motherless. And this could have happened to her. I'm not even talking about what could have happened to the baby, having placenta previa early, going into preterm labor. Having a baby at 27 weeks is very early. Those babies are set up for lifelong complications sometimes if they make it. Sometimes babies don't make it that early. But she had high blood pressure. She could have lost her life. She is fortunate that she didn't. While she was recovering in the ICU, she remembers the intended mother coming to check in on her to say, I'm so sorry this is happening to you, that this is your experience. Thank you so much for birthing our child. Promising, she explicitly remembers her promising to be in touch, to send photos, to let her know how the baby's doing. But in talking to her words, she said, poof, she was gone into thin air. She never saw the intended parents again. She has not had contact with the child, has no idea how she or he is doing. And we find that the case often. Surrogate mothers are promised contact, promised getting to be at least a little part or understanding or knowing what is happening to a child that you gave birth to, and then having absolutely no follow-up, totally losing connection with the family. And so to me, I think that would be devastating. Other people say, oh, that's what they sign up for. That would be devastating, to birth a child and then never, to be promised that contact and then never have that. So anyway, she spends time in the ICU. She's in the hospital and she goes home. A week later, she has to call 911 because she is having a panic attack. She is having feelings of impending doom. She is having a flashback of the trauma that she had in the hospital. She's diagnosed with postpartum depression, which again, our studies and others show that surrogate mothers are more likely to have postpartum depression with their surrogate pregnancies than pregnancies with their own children. And so she had postpartum depression. She was put on medications for her postpartum depression. When you go home with no baby after a traumatic experience, your breasts are full, your hormones are raging, it is no wonder these women are more susceptible to postpartum depression. And I failed to mention this earlier, but she was hospitalized or in the hospital over 100 times during her entire pregnancy, during this high-risk pregnancy. And some people might say, she signed a contract, she knew what she was doing. You cannot sign a contract protecting you from how your body's going to respond carrying these types of pregnancies. You cannot protect a woman's life. The contract might say, oh, you're going to get extra money if you have to have a C-section. You're going to get extra money if you lose your uterus, which she did. She received, what did she call it? She received monies for pain and suffering above and beyond what the contract stated. But a contract can't protect her. It can't protect the child either. So she's doing better now. She's off of her medications for postpartum depression. But she actually found out, another part of her story, that she was not the only surrogate mother that the intended parents had paid for and impregnated. So another surrogate mother delivered a child for the same intended parents a month after she did. This is also not uncommon. This procedure can take some time, so getting multiple women pregnant at the same time is saves time, can save money. And so she found out that there was another woman who delivered a child for this intended parents, which kind of had an impact on her, because here she was thinking she's helping this family and then finding out that they're using multiple women to grow their family. And she wasn't aware of this throughout her pregnancy. And then to put like a cherry on top of her experience, so she has had all of these medical complications, drawing her away from her time at home with her children, risking her life. She is now being hounded by hospitals and debt collectors because nobody has paid her medical bills. She has over $100,000 in medical debt affecting her credit. So most of the time, intended parents will purchase a health insurance plan for the surrogate mother. So she's not using her own insurance during her surrogate pregnancy and the immediate postpartum period. And so they had purchased an insurance plan for her, but for whatever reason, the insurance plan didn't have the right types of providers, so the providers were out of network for her, having to travel long distances to see a provider. And here she is having these really emergent conditions and unable to access healthcare that was covered by the umbrella policy that she had for whatever reason. And so the insurance isn't paying these bills. They're like, no, I'm not paying for the hysterectomy. I'm not paying for the C-section. They're out of network. The agency doesn't want to pay for it, of course. And so she's left, because it's her name on the medical bills, she's left fighting off these debt collectors. And she's hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical debt. This is absurd. The agency needs to be held accountable. The insurance probably also needs to be held accountable. The intended parents obviously have enough money. They're hiring multiple women to have their children. I'm livid that a woman can have this type of experience, that her health can be so negatively impacted, and the health of her, possibly the child, and the stability of her family. Here's a woman who's going to the doctor, who's being hospitalized. Man, and then she's being, on top of all of that, hounded for these medical bills for a child that's not hers. This is an injustice. This is terrible. We need to end this in the United States. We need to stop surrogacy now.